today.
All right. Hello, how's everyone doing? And how are you? We are here with Miss Riana Milne, correct?
Riana
Okay.
Milne.
All right. We are here with her today. She's a global life and love coach, and she's a certified clinical trauma specialist. And I am Alicia Watson, and I am the CEO and owner of the She Bad Society. And we are here for an episode of She Talks. And I am so excited to talk with Miss Riana and get to know her a little bit more. So we're going to open the platform for you to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Hi, Alicia. Thank you so much for hosting me. Hello, everybody. Just to introduce myself, yes, I am a certified global life and love coach, a certified clinical trauma professional, a student assistance counselor. I worked at every grade level from kindergarten through college with those of trauma. I am a #1 best-selling author of 2 books, Live Beyond Your Dreams, From Fear and Doubt to Personal Power, Purpose, and Success, and Love Beyond Your Dreams, Break Free of Toxic Relationships to Have the Love You Deserve. I'm also a certified mindfulness coach. So I work with singles and couples of all ages to create the life that they desire and to have the love that they deserve.
Wow, that is so awesome. So when I was reading over your bio about you as a love coach and a clinical trauma specialist, and I had a chance to read over some of the things that you tackle in being a trauma specialist, and I was kind of intrigued because this is the first time I've actually been able to talk to someone who's in that field.
Mm-hmm.
So what inspired you to become a global and love coach, and how did you become a trauma specialist?
Okay, well, I've been a psychotherapist for 20 years in private practice. My company was called Therapy by the Sea, and went to be certified as a coach in 2009. Actually, when I knew that Obamacare was coming to be, and I knew it was kind of the beginning of the end of the insurance model to be in private practice. But, I've been working with people of trauma most of my life. Like I said, I've been working with kids in schools that were bullied or felt, different. They may have been diagnosed ADHD or oppositional defiant, or they were the bullies. And the common element was most of them came from traumatic homes. Then I'm also a drug and alcohol addictions counselor. So I worked in rehab centers for adolescents and women from the prison system who ended up there, and they were in drug court. And then I worked in a hospital adolescent unit where the kids were suicidal or cutting or bulimic, runaways, part of the foster care system. So looking at all of that, and then having a personal situation with someone that I loved and married. He has what I call a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde personality type.
Wow.
I thought we had an idyllic marriage, and we were both working in schools. He as a middle school principal, me as a SAC counselor. And we came home from a great Christmas vacation, only for him to show up at my school at 10:30. And I said, "Why are you here?" And they said, "They won't let me into my office." And I'm, "Why?" Well, long story short, he was caught with porn on his computer. He was banished from the school, had to appear before the school board. So not only did he lose everything, his job, his salary, his reputation, but it impacted me as being his new wife. We were only married 5 months. So I stepped up and became my own attorney, which they call pro se attorney, and fought for my rights to annul the marriage. And the family court judge said, "Miss Milne, in 32 years of being a family court judge, I've only granted 1 annulment." He slammed his gavel and he goes, "And yours is the second. I've never seen such a compelling, accurate case." So I got a little satisfaction from that, just to feel free of this, the toxic personality type that was in my life. But I couldn't figure out why he would do this and sabotage everything. So I started doing some research because I needed answers, and none of my 7 psychotherapy friends knew what he had. This shocked all of us. It shocked the kids. Of course, we never hear an apology, which is sociopathic. They don't have any remorse to their actions. They run away or blame others. So I needed to figure out what this was. And I came up with a childhood trauma checklist. And I talk about 10 of the traumas. There are more. But when I do an interview, I tell the listeners about the top 10 that I have seen. And the study from Kaiser Permanente group came out doing the correlation between childhood trauma and later disease in life. and early illness. So even diabetes, Alzheimer's, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, MS, huge correlation between, the two, unhealed childhood trauma and illness.
Wow.
So I was the one that more did the studies on life and love and how they're impacted. And that's what I wrote up in my coaching program to help both singles and couples, have a better quality relationship, and for singles to find someone who is emotionally healthy, evolved, and consciously aware. So, yeah, that's what I did. I created the checklist, and it's answering a lot of questions for a lot of people.
Wow, that is awesome. So you were determined to get that annulment.
Yes. Yes. Really to find out the answers were more important to me. And when I had the answers, really realizing that my ex-husband was terribly impacted by childhood trauma, that led to my forgiveness. It was easy to forgive at that point because he had 9 out of the 10 traumas. And if you'd like, I'll go over that list of 10 traumas to see if people identify themselves. Being that 90% of people have at least 1 to 3, most people find the list pretty fascinating.
Well, please share that list with us so
Okay.
the readers and listeners, when they come back and watch this, that maybe it could help them in some type of way. So please share.
Sure. Okay. So remember, when I talk about this, you were young and innocent, and this is not about blame or shame. We don't want to blame your parents at this stage of your life, and it's not about feeling ashamed or embarrassed that these things may have happened to you. Keep in mind, you were a young, innocent child, and you were just part of the environment of what you lived. So that's a very important disclaimer. Also, I'm going to encourage your listeners to get a list and make 3 columns on the list. The first column says you at the top, me. The second column says partner. So this would be any partner you've struggled with. And the third one would be parent, because the Kaiser study showed that this goes through at least 3 generations, if not more. So if you identify trauma in yourself, it's because your parents had trauma and because their parents came from trauma. Okay?
Wow.
Yeah. So it's lifelong until somebody breaks the trauma connection by education, right? Okay. So the first one is if your parent had any addictions. Now, Kaiser only said drugs and alcohol. Now, I'm an addiction specialist, so I name 11 of them. So it's drugs, alcohol, sex, meaning your parent was a chronic cheater, porn, gambling, hoarding, spending, eating, gaming, TV watching, workaholism. So there's 11. I'm sure there's more, but that's some of the top ones that I saw. Second is verbal abuse. Now, they mention if you witness domestic conversation between your parents, yelling, screaming. I also identify if you've never heard, I love you. If you never heard compliments or great job. Instead, you're hearing comments like, you'll amount to no good. What are you up to? Always getting yourself in trouble.
Oh, wow.
I don't need to hear what you have to say. Keep your mouth shut. Any kind of derogatory verbal put downs, I identify as trauma because of the kids I've worked with, right? Okay, the third one is
identify to that.
Yes. Third one is emotional abuse and neglect. And that one, we pretty much know what that looks like, but I was surprised in one of the studies, they said, and I was a single mom for many years, if we worked 9 to 5 and our kids let themselves in our homes, that was called latchkey kids. And we used to do that because childcare really didn't exist. And they said that 2 to 3 hours waiting for the parent to come home was a form of neglect, even though we're out there earning a salary to support our families. But that would cause anxiety in the child. The next one is physical abuse, rape, or molestation, and those could have happened in or outside of the home. Physical abuse is any kind of beatings whatsoever. The next one is abandonment. There's 2 types I identify, fault and no fault. So a no fault abandonment would be if a parent happens to die early, if they go off to serve in war, the child's always worried, is my parent going to come home safe? And if they travel a lot to take care of the family, and I identified myself in that one. We didn't know it, but my father was gone a lot. I remember asking, where's dad? When's daddy coming home? My mom never knew. Well, he was FBI, CIA, and we weren't allowed to know. So she didn't know, we didn't know, and that is a form of anxiety for the kids. A fault abandonment would be a parent never getting involved with the child in the first place, or if they were married and a divorce, a parent doesn't see the child, or even a kind of abandonment. Let's say they pick them up for the weekend, but they totally check out and they're with their new girlfriend, or they're checking out watching football all weekend and the kid's just in his room on a computer.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fault. They could be interacting and having more quality time.
Yeah.
Okay. The next one, number 6, is if you were adopted, part of foster care, or needed to grow up in someone else's household and house, like even meaning an aunt or a grandparent, that your parents couldn't take care of you.
Mm-hmm.
Trauma number 7 is the most common that I see, and I call that personal trauma. So that's if you were ever bullied, put down, made to feel like you're not good enough, you're overweight child, skinny and gawky child, you were called a nerd, anything like that, where you just didn't feel like you fit in.
Yeah.
In my office, I had a beautiful African-American girl, and she's there. All the other ones, no, Rihanna, that's not it. And I hit this one. She goes, oh my God, that's it. She goes, I was the only African-American girl in an all-white school. And I always felt different. I always felt not accepted. So that one was big for her. And I'll show you how trauma number 7 comes up quite a bit. She was there for jealousy and control issues with her boyfriend.
Okay.
So it comes up with that feeling, I don't feel good enough, which is a big unconscious feeling for many people. Okay, the next one, trauma 8, is sibling trauma. So your sibling could have bullied you. They could have been born with a medical issue, commanding more of mom's and dad's time, but most often you would perceive them to be the golden child. So they got more of mom's and dad's attention because they were smarter, more beautiful, more athletic, something that they excelled, and they were the favored one. Okay. Trauma 9 has 2 parts, because I brought the second part in from the later list because it's very important. The part I brought in was community trauma, which is growing rampant now. Those are our mass shootings, our school shootings, our loss of large communities by flood, fire, hurricane, mudslides. We're having more and more natural disasters. And of course, that's hard for an adult. Can you imagine the trauma on our little kids? Right? And then the other one in that part is family trauma. This is if a parent was incarcerated. If you remember growing up with lack, or in a dangerous area, your family had to move every 2 to 4 years because you were part of a military family, making you, always the new kid in school. Or just remember a lot of lack, struggle, around money, trying to make ends meet. And then the last one is if your parents had a mental health condition. The 2 most difficult is bipolar and borderline personality disorder. So borderline I describe as fast trigger anger and extreme moodiness. When they're good, they're great, but when they're bad, they're horrid, and you never know what they're going to get. They'll fly off at something and be real angry at something nobody else would think is a big deal. So for a little child, that's really hard to negotiate. And then the other one is bipolar, which is manic depressive. Manic can come out as a gambling spree, an eating binge, hoarding, spending. The depression can come out as, extreme fatigue, or checking out emotionally, or even anger. So that's the list of 10.
Wow. And I can, even though a lot of those I probably didn't see in my childhood, I experienced them in adulthood.
Oh, okay.
So maybe the person I was with maybe experienced those things in their life.
That's right.
And it affected my life, and then I became a part of their cycle.
Right. And this is what we call love trauma, Melisha.
Yeah.
And that's what I had, was a victim of love trauma, because he did things out of integrity and not only messed up his life, but because we were together, it impacted mine, so I had to climb out from that, not only emotionally, but financially. And, with my business, it hurt my business, just from something I didn't do, so it's a very hard thing when you're on the back end of receiving
Yeah.
someone who is toxic. We call this toxic behavior.
Yeah.
So if you'd like, I'll go into some of the ways this plays out now that you know what the traumas are. So one that women do a lot of is called people pleasing. So where does
Oh,
that come from? That
wow.
comes from, let's say you had an alcoholic mother. If you're a child of an alcoholic, we call that ACOA, adult child of an alcoholic, or other traumas. So let's say the mother's hungover and in a bad mood in the morning. So that oldest daughter would get up, get all the kids ready for school, get them dressed, pack the lunches, get them to the bus, anything to please that difficult parent, to
Yeah.
receive a little love and to have peace. So kids will adapt at what age they are to try to negotiate their environment the best that they can.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in the schools as a SAC counselor, I had Miss Riana's relaxation room. And my kids, the kids that were assigned to me, I call them my kids, would come down and they would sit and meditate with me. Or we do some music therapy. I remember one of their favorite songs was Louis Miguel, all Spanish. I didn't understand a word of it, but it's very soothing and calm. And the teachers are like, they're coming back all zenned out. What are you doing in there? I made sure there was low lighting, none of those harsh lightings. And then I did positive behavioral techniques called the STAR chart so that they got rewarded for having a good day. And then soon that extrinsic award, meaning something external, they get after a week of stars, they go into my treasure chest and pull out a few prizes. But afterwards, they would find being good, their teacher liked them better and they could get more friends and they felt calmer. So that's what we call the internal or intrinsic awards. And pretty soon you don't need the external so much because their personalities adapt, right? So people pleasing is one of them. Let's talk about the charming and manipulative man. Where does he
Well, let
come
me ask you a
from?
question right quick. What is one of the hardest things that you've noticed from a woman who's a people pleaser?
Well, if she comes to me in a married relationship, I'll hear something, I've lost myself. I do everything for my kids and my husband. They do nothing for me. They don't love me like I love them. She's burnt out, angry, exhausted, and pissed. She doesn't feel love in her life. But she's always doing and overdoing. So her boundaries are very stretched. So we have to work with those feelings. If they're a couple, I have to, really separate both partner A and partner B, look at both of their childhood traumas, communicate where they're pushing each other's buttons, and create new communication skills around what they're doing to each other.
Do you think as being a people pleaser that a woman can sometimes forget about herself and put her
Always.
desires and needs on the back burner?
Yes, they do. They do. They put themselves last, and that's why there's no self-care. They felt
Yeah.
so exhausted. And another big pattern I see is they're successful in business, but struggle in love, and they can't figure out why. So where that comes from is trauma number 7, not feeling good enough, and maybe trauma number 2, the verbal put downs or you'll amount to nothing, whatever. So they go to school and they feel some accomplishment at school by doing well. And it might be the one time they hear, oh, I'm proud of you. You got A's and B's, right?
Yeah.
So they learn to excel. And this is very much, I love Oprah's story. She came, look at all the trauma she had, community trauma, teased because she was a larger woman, told as an African American she'll never make it in broadcasting. She had so many verbal put downs coming at her, but her mindset was strong. And this is what I teach, the mindset for success. But, she put everything aside and totally focused on her career. And she excelled at it. It's a great story. But, women successful in business, but struggle in love. So they learn to excel, to find that love, to find that, to get some compliments, to say, see, look at me, see how well I'm doing. And yet the dynamics maybe between her and her father or her and her mother were never healed. So, they're attracting toxic partners still.
Yeah.
And they have not healed that emotional piece. So that's my typical client. They do very well in business, but they cannot find love, or they have repetitive toxic relationships, which we call same person, different face. and
Yeah.
where does that come from, and so I had to look back at my roots and why was I attracting people that lacked integrity or that got us in trouble and couldn't be responsible, because I'm super responsible,
Yeah.
and what was I missing? So when I train people, from my research, we heal the trauma piece, we look deep and get to the root of what the issues are, where they're
Mhm.
struggling as an adult. We heal all that, discuss their dreams and goals, where they want to go. And then
Mhm.
part two is the love portion. So if they're in a couple, we teach them renegotiation of that relationship. If it's a single, they have to know what to attract and what to say no to. That it's called being consciously aware or conscious dating. You're
Yeah.
not just sitting back and enjoying your date and having a good time. No, you're asking certain questions,
Yeah.
you're listening, you're watching body language, and you know exactly what to look for. So it's a very empowering way to date. And if you see, usually in the first or second date, if they're right for you or not. And if they're not, they say, I think you're a very nice person, I just don't think we're quite a match, and you move on. So it's a lot of different knowledge that we never got growing up in high school, college, or from our parents.
And does all that play into also as your life coaching?
Yes, that's what the life coaching is. First is dealing with the trauma piece and how
Mm-hmm.
that's coming out in your life. So there could be someone, I love the story that I love biographies. So I know the biography of Quincy Jones,
Mm-hmm.
right? An amazing, accomplished man, right? Also came from poverty. His parents were both drug addicted. They lost their house. He had to go live with the grandmother. He said, we were lucky if we ate that day. There would be a couple days always going by with no food. If she caught a rat, that was dinner. So this is how type of poverty came from. He started working at 14 to help support the family. Very accomplished man in music and film, and mentored a lot of young people. Love his story. But at the end, after saying all the accolades and all the awards he won and what a good person he was to society, is there any place you didn't excel in? And he shakes his head. He goes, yeah, love relationships.
Yeah.
He couldn't have a quality relationship with his woman. He didn't for many years with his kids. As he aged, he did. He found a way to heal that. But this is a very typical story for many entrepreneurs.
It is, because I feel like certain things in my life hindered my growth. I feel I could have went further had I
Mm-hmm.
not been maybe traumatized by my divorce. I got married kind of young, and then just a couple of years ago I was homeless.
Ah, okay.
So this a transition, I have started rebuilding my life, and sometimes I find myself thinking back and fearful that what if I go back to where I came from? What if something happens? And I worry about not being successful enough or not touching enough women's lives with
Mm-hmm.
my story and my transparency. So
It's
definitely
great
came
that
up.
you're giving back. That's great that you're
Yeah.
giving back. Yeah, I mean, people that are shattered by love trauma, it is PTSD. It is a
Mhm.
form of that. It is not in
What?
the DSM-5 diagnostic model for psychotherapists. I think it's a huge miss, because I know I went through PTSD with the shock of discovering what happened. My whole life was beautiful one day, horrendous the next,
Yeah.
and I had to climb out of this hole and figure out why did he do what he did. And it
Mhm.
ended up, my husband had 9 of the 10 traumas. Then we also look at the levels of trauma, 1 to 10, 10 being severe. So he had a
Yeah.
severely alcoholic father, got a lot of beatings, grew up in lack, told he's no good. I mean, right down the
You name
line.
it. Yeah.
Timid mother that wouldn't stand up for him, so he was angry at her. So this all is described in different personality types in my love book, Love Beyond Your Dreams. The personality types that you want to make sure that you're avoiding. you know
I want to make
um
sure I get that book also.
yeah, it's on Amazon. It's in Kindle and ebook form in Barnes and Nobles, so it's out there for sure. And you can get free chapter downloads right on my website. Both Live and Love. They're meant to go together because one's about life and one's about love. So the first 50 to 60 pages of each book are downloaded to my readers.
So I know you also, I was reading up that you love to empower women and how they have failure about starting businesses or stepping out on their own to start businesses.
Yes.
So how do you empower them, and what do you hope by talking to them and trying to find they take away from what you're helping them with?
Well, unhealed childhood trauma leads to a negative fear-based way of thinking, which we call a mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And the studies show 8 out of 10 people have 8 out of 10 negative thoughts. I
Wow.
can't do this. I shouldn't spend the money on myself. This will never work. They're afraid to go to the next level, which with business and coaching, I've invested easily, 200,000 or more in my coaches, to learn how to podcast was John Lee Dumas, to learn business was Lisa Sachovich. I mean, you have to invest to grow in business.
Yeah.
And to have a model to follow, right? And a mentor to help you. So those that have solid self-esteem, it's like, yes, I'm making this investment because I'm worth it and I know it will help me grow, and I'll take what I'm learning and I will enact it and make sure I'm impacting the world. That's someone who has confidence. The other, which is the majority of the people, I'm afraid to spend the money. What if this doesn't work? How can I do this? There's only other people that can do this. So, it's always that negative tape in your head until you heal the past traumas. So we have to take care of that piece first. Then we look at the goals and dreams that you have. We set up realistic steps to reach those goals and dreams. And we keep working on that mindset from taking it to unconscious fears to conscious awareness, living in a very evolved life, meaning being the highest and best person you can be in all areas. And we keep up chopping away at your game plan.
Wow.
Eventually finding love.
This is some deep stuff. I think we're going to have to do an interview part 2 to get down a little bit more deeper. And there's a lot of coaches out here and they teach practices and they give you tips and advice. What I want to know is the advice and the steps you give to help others. Do you ever apply any of these practices to your own personal life?
Oh, yeah. That's why I did the research for my own healing. Now, I've been using the mindset for success since my 20s because I did not have an easy story. My first husband borrowed a large sum of money from my mother, $200,000. He and his father never paid it back. By 26, I had 2 little girls. He made huge mistakes in business. We had a $750,000 bankruptcy, and I left with 2 little girls and a prayer and opened up a model and talent school and agency with my first month's rent. That's all I had.
Wow.
And this is decision that this has to work for me and my girls. 6 months later, he comes after me for child support. My school won educational excellence within 6 months at an International Model and Talent Association convention. Within the year, it won School of the Year. So this mindset for success has gotten me through very difficult transformations and transitions in my life that were kind of forced upon me. And then I taught it to my children. And my 36-year-old daughter is in Inc. and Forbes magazine as top 11 women entrepreneurs. She has been putting water wells in Tanzania, Africa since the age of 20. Wow. And now she has 21 water wells. Her and her best friend, the charity is called Epic, Everyday People Initiating Change. At 15, she said, Mom, I want to be a pop star. That was the time of Christina Aguilera and Britney Spears. And as the spiritual world would have it, I happened to run into Ja Rule. She sings on 3 multi-platinum CDs with Ja. And this is before the whole hip hop wars and everything else. But, it's a mindset, like you decide what you want to do and we find a way to do it. It becomes, awesome. It's quite interesting. And now she speaks around the world on personal transformation. But then she went from singing, I want to be in TV now. So she's been a host on a couple of HGTV shows and on E! Entertainment News and Bleacher Report. So, I mean, it's this mindset of setting your goals. What do we need to get things into place and work your plan? And this is how I raised my daughters. My other one was 11 years supervisor at JetBlue and now has her own photography business while she raises my 2 grandsons. So it's something you can teach kids. And it was really cool because I was teaching this to my kids in the schools. And they went from, ADHD, acting out, to calmer, better friends, better behavior in the classroom. So it's really cool to see it. So parents can really use this mindset for success. And I go into all of that in my Live Beyond Your Dreams book.
Yeah. I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago on Mindset Matters. The mindset is people don't realize how powerful it is.
Yeah, for sure.
And I tell people the way you think is what you become, and your actions, it becomes a part of you. And if you don't program it the right way, it'll control you to take you down, cause you to act out,
Yeah.
in a unladylike manner. It can have you thinking negative so much till you think yourself into poverty.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
right.
it's like a drug. It becomes negativity becomes like a crutch. It is so much easier to think down than it is to think highly of yourself.
Yes, I describe the fear-based side of and negativity of the mindset like a tornado. It starts small and it gets bigger and bigger and impacts every area of your life. The darkness, the dust, it clouds your vision for hope and happiness. So people that live in the dark side of life, we clean that right up.
Yeah.
This is the mindset skills that I have to teach my people. And my notebook's 150 pages. So this is all from my research. It's a 6-month program. And as a certified clinical trauma professional, I take things from that and then my own experience and the other research that I've done to help people change their mindset and have a more, we call it living in the light, a positive, joyful aura and mindset about life, love, business, parenting, all aspects of their life.
Have you ever came across a case where a person that was so far gone that you wasn't just able to give them the help that they needed?
Well, they say the sociopath can't be changed. Okay, when they say, I kind of have a standing joke when they say 90% of people have 1 to 3 traumas, the other 10% are sociopaths, and they never say anything's wrong about themselves, right? Because the stats in 2011 was 1 in 25 people were sociopathic. Now they're saying it's 6 or 7 in 25. So those singles out in dating world, you have to be careful. And psychopaths are sociopaths that kill. So, that type, they're usually 9s and 10s on my checklist with severity levels of 9s and 10s. You can get a narcissist that's also sociopathic that only cares about themselves. They'll never apologize, always blaming behavior. It's already about you or somebody else that did them wrong. You'll see those checklists in my books as well as what does the sociopath look like and the narcissist and that type of thing. So sometimes the ones that I might struggle with is if there's a couple and let's say the male was in the midst of an affair and the kids found out and he goes, okay, we'll go to counseling or coaching. And he's already mentally out the door. And I can see it early on, and they're doing the motions just to say to the kids, well, we tried this and it didn't work.
Yeah.
That's the one that I have the hardest time reaching, the one that's so emotionally gone from that relationship that they're just doing this as a Band-Aid. But, a sharp therapist will kind of be on to that.
What do you think makes women, especially, stay not only in bad relationships, but bad business relationships?
Okay, well, let's talk about love relationships. That's definitely from abandonment.
Yeah.
Trying to hold on to something that consciously they know it's toxic, they know it's bad, but unconsciously they want love so bad. And they try to take it back to the beginning of the relationships. And these beginnings of these relationships, they're love bombing. Okay. So a lot of texts, a lot of calls, maybe gifts. I love you early. Let's be exclusive early on, trying to push you into a fast marriage. Somebody uses that as a compliment. Wow, he loves me so much. He wants to marry me within 2.5 months. I'm like, no, that's a red flag, because they're holding on, trying to be this best, perfect partner until legally they tie you up and then go do their own thing. And that's what a sociopath will do. A sociopath uses people for pleasure or profit. So if you're seeing on my website, we have the red flags checklist that you can look at with a partner. If you see some of those red flags, and over 4, I'd be very concerned. Over 6 or 7, I might go,
Right.
what are you doing in this relationship? So
Yeah.
if you see it in black and white on a checklist, it's just called the free love test. That is very much an eye opener to how you're doing in this relationship and if it has hope or not. If you're seeing a lot of the red flags, you should be very careful and protect yourself and your kids and get out.
Yeah, because I met a guy within 3 weeks. It was I love you and let's get married.
Oh yeah, that's a big red flag. Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
So you want to take things slow. You want to ask the questions that you can learn about in the books or in my course. There's a 25 of them. So, and then when you get the answers, you can kind of analyze. I'll give you one, just one of the first ones. So tell me about your mom and dad. So it doesn't have to sound like an interview. It's like common questions. But then, it's amazing how many will say, oh, my dad was an alcoholic. And you can say, oh, that's a shame. I mean, was he a happy drunk or was he a mean drunk? No, he used to hit us all the time. I hate him. I haven't talked to him in years. Now we know that's unhealed childhood trauma right there.
Yeah.
And that's a date you would not want to have a second date with.
Or someone who's vague about their parents. What do you take that as?
Yeah, there could be covering, shame-based. They don't want to go into the information.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
wow.
there's all kinds of patterns you want to look for, and that's why you're consciously aware when you date, and you know what you're looking for when you get the questions.
Wow.
If that same man said, yeah, my dad, he was a horrible drunk, he used to beat us kids, and as soon as I was able, I went to a counselor for this and healed about it, learned all about ACOA, Adult Children of Alcoholics, and worked with her for a couple of years to the point where I was able to forgive my dad. And he actually stopped drinking, and we have a good relationship now. So you can see the difference in that answer versus the first answer.
Yeah.
Right? So we can't help what our parents did, but we can help how we heal it and look at it and forgive it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So I was also, when I was reading your bio, you said something about anxiety. You have anxiety over failure of anxiety, somewhere you put it. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yes, everyone that has unhealed childhood trauma has high and usually ongoing anxiety. That's the main sign, and with usually some bouts of depression. Okay, those are how my clients come to me. And really, my clients are on no psychotropic drugs. They don't need them. We all do mindset, holistic mind, body, spirit. There is a spiritual component to my programs as well. So the anxiety piece, this is very typical. There's usually also low trust. They're afraid to trust others. Quick to want love. So they may get involved intimately too fast in relationships and then are always getting hurt or saying, this is the one, I finally met the one. And 2 weeks later, it's not the one, so they want love really badly, high anxiety, and they're part of that love bombing too. And people of trauma attract people of trauma. So if there's that constant love bombing, this is where the relationship was great in the beginning. And then the studies show usually 4 months to 9 months, or if they move in together, marry, have a baby, as soon as there's a transition in this relationship becomes more exclusive and more serious, then the partner with the unhealed trauma usually starts acting up more. So if they drank a little, they might drink more. If they smoked a little pot, they might be smoking every day. They're not showing up. They may be reaching out to get attention from someone else. Men that flirt and look for attention outside of the relationship. That's someone that had a difficult time with their mom. They didn't feel loved or attached to her, maybe didn't hear I love you. So they're always seeking more attention, and they want their woman in their life to be perfect. So that's high control, high demand, high perfectionism, which is really hard for women because we're human to live with. But that's usually where that comes from, that, he had trouble with his mom. Or if he hates his mom, we call that a mother hater. And that's one of the most difficult guys to end up with, because, he will eventually be angry at you. a lot, or disappointed in you, or how could you do this? And,
Mhm.
and lack respect for you.
Yeah. So what do you call those people, which I think is more prevalent than people realize, that never seem to see their faults? Or if you're trying to express yourself, it's always about their feelings or what they're going through, but they never see the trauma and the things they're putting you through.
Right. Okay. Well, that's the blamers, people
Okay.
who blame others.
Hmm.
And they could or could not be sociopathic or narcissistic. It's always about someone else doing something wrong, not themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So more than likely, they probably are narcissistic, sociopathic.
I mean, you have really opened up some doors in my mind and hit some nails on the head today, because
Okay,
some of
good.
these things, even when you call the trauma being part of PSD, that was awesome when you said that. It was like a aha moment.
Yeah, and signs of PTSD in love relationships, you could feel numb, you're not sleeping, or you're exhausted, you fall asleep, you wake up in the middle of the night, you have crying jags anytime, like at a drop of a hat. You still want him, although you could hate him because of what he's done to you, but you're still drawn to him, and that could lend into love addiction if you've had abandonment in your life, right?
So
So
how do you
it's,
think these issues affect women who are in the workplace or as business owners?
does it affect them?
How do you think situations like this can affect them, or do you think they can be affected by someone that they work with that is dealing with those issues?
Oh, if they're working with that. Yeah, it can.
Yeah.
I do a lot of speeches at corporate levels
Mm-hmm.
about work relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And it's definite, if you're struggling in a bad relationship at home, you bring your anger and frustration into work,
Yeah.
and if somebody's having difficult moods, then it's important for the corporate bosses to understand that either this is childhood trauma coming up, or are they going through something at home? And
Mm-hmm.
really, they should require some mental health sessions to calm down whatever's going on. If there's bullies in the workplace or bullying others, that's got to be stopped,
Yeah.
where they're trying to fiercely compete because they have to feel better than everybody else. That's an issue. That's a childhood trauma issue. You want to have good relationships. For the women that are business owners and have toxic relationships, this is one reason why it's so important that you heal and get this person out of your life, because it will impact your business.
Yeah.
It's going to, take room up in your head where you
Oh,
could free and clear it and be able to totally focus on what it is you need to do to create that good business for yourself without the guy bringing you down. I have seen a lot of patterns with our successful women having
yeah.
men that would be perceived less than.
Mm-hmm.
These are guys that would charm them, talk them into having a relationship, and then start controlling them or yelling at them or making them late for a meeting, to kind of sabotage their business. Now, whether that's unconscious or not, we don't know. But if you saw the series, and if you haven't, I highly suggest it, called Dirty John.
Dirty John.
It's
Yeah, I heard. I seen that just today.
Yeah, it's a documentary series on Netflix, I believe.
Okay.
It was outstanding, and it's a true story about this lovely lady who was an architectural, spiritual woman, a great mom, worked hard as a single woman to get her life together. And this charming guy comes into her life. He lies about what he does as a profession, and then he starts just doting on her, love bombing her, and eventually the girls kind of figure out something's not right with him, her daughters. She doesn't see it. He whisks her away to get married in Las Vegas
Oh,
without any prenup. Now he's tied to her. Boom, everything changes. He's controlling her money, where the money goes. And he actually, attempted to
I need to
kill the
see that.
daughter. Yeah, he
Yeah.
attempted to kill the daughter to get her out of the life, away from the mom's ear, right? So, and again, this is a true story. So women have to be very careful out there in dating world. You really want to empower yourself. And if you're a successful businesswoman, you have to protect yourself from
Yeah.
anybody that could be sociopathic, again, using you for pleasure or profit,
Yeah.
and be very, very protective of your assets. you
Yeah.
know.
Because I've definitely learned that trying to grow my platform, my business, that I have coming from as an African American, our lifestyles, you come from different backgrounds. I
Mm-hmm.
was raised, in a middle class family. My mom was a pastor of a church.
Oh,
So I was raised up with not only with values, but a stern upbringing.
mm-hmm.
Um, I didn't wear pants and jewelry, and we didn't, sleep or date or be with men before we were married. And that's the way she raised us. I didn't go to parties and do things. So
Right.
being raised like that, and then when you get married, you have your own life. Um, Life happened. A lot of times I was so used to that way I was brought up that I had to transition my life into the life I wanted.
Right.
But then I found myself coming right back to the life that I was raised in, that lifestyle. And for a while I went to my pants and my jewelry, but now I no longer wear it again.
Yeah.
It's my choice, So
That's
a lot
right.
of and I've been single and celibate for the last 5.5 years.
Okay.
And where people have fear of abandonment, I have more fear of being with the wrong person again.
Yeah. That's
And
very typical for those who
yeah,
have been through love trauma.
yeah. So I'm to the point where a part of me, oh yeah, I'm happy I want to date. And the other part was like, I kind of like my life this way without the benefit.
Well, the thing is, you can't blame all men out there based on one experience, one man. It wouldn't be
Yeah,
fair to any of the others. And it
yeah,
wouldn't be fair if they did that to you because
yeah,
they had a hard time with another woman, right?
yeah,
So I always say, and I'm an interfaith minister, that you have to give everyone 100%. It's the kind and
yeah,
loving thing to do. Trust, and then only they can take it away,
yeah,
right? So but if you are conscious and aware, you know how to protect yourself emotionally. You're
yeah,
not diving in so hard and so
yeah,
fast. You're establishing that friendship first
yeah,
over time, and
yeah.
then that can develop into love.
And the one mistake I found I made, I never healed from the bad relationship I had. You find yourself where when you go into another relationship and you haven't healed from that one, it's doomed for trouble and for failure because you
You
haven't.
have to heal. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
very
yeah,
important
yeah,
because you're going to attract the same kind of person.
yes,
And, most people fall in love by chemistry. It's the most dangerous thing you can do. The chemistry pulls you to the past, to the
yeah,
same type of guy as your father, if you're a girl, usually, to that difficult person or strict person or controlling person in your life. And, you have to be really careful about that. So it's
what,
not chemistry that, you have to look at everything else. Chemistry is the icing on the cake. If you don't have the cake, you have no icing. It melts on the counter. So you
yeah,
need the cake, you need the substance of this
yeah.
person. And that's what you have to start looking at: the character, the qualities, the values of this individual.
So how have your support system been since you've been doing it for many years? How have your support system been from your family and friends in the profession that you're in?
Well, I've had friends, my best friends are 18, 20 years, and then my long-term friends, even from high school. So I've always had really great friends. My siblings, we're different individuals, but we respect each other's individual choices.
Yeah.
I have amazing daughters and 3 grandsons and 2 twins on the way.
Oh
Alexei is
wow.
pregnant
Okay.
with twins. So, I mean,
Congratulations.
thank you. So, yeah, life is good. I'm dating someone very special. And I kind of keep that separate from my business life.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So what would you say has been throughout your career, what has been three of your main struggles that you have dealt with?
In business,
Business and
um, business is always starting a business with no loans. Never. Every one of my businesses come from an idea and the
life. Yeah.
belief that I can do it. Right? Because the
Yeah.
modeling company, I couldn't get a loan. I had a bankruptcy. So the
Mhm.
first month's rent and the belief I can do this and I need to do this for my kids. And I had that business 10 years and then went back for my master's in psychology.
Yeah.
Um, Same thing with a therapy center, going from a school environment to private practice. I believed, in my ability to coach. I was always more of a coach than a counselor.
Mhm.
And the ability to go global. And when I'm
Yeah.
stuck and there's something I don't know, or I want to do something very well, I will
Yeah.
seek out the coach and mentor. Like I have John Lee Dumas for podcasts. He's my
Yeah.
coach. He's one of the top coaches and business podcasts in the world. I was just at a mastermind with him over the weekend, him and his lovely lady, Kate, in Puerto Rico. So I seek out top mentors and coaches to help me with the areas I don't know, to bring me
Yeah.
that confidence level that I need. So that's it. I mean, I don't call them really struggles in business. I call them challenges. And what can I do? I never think, what can I do? It's like, okay, what do I need to do just to make that come to be? So it's a very proactive way of thinking, but I've been thinking this way my whole life. And in love, the challenges were, husband one and husband two, with these toxic things. And why was I attracting this? And what do they have? Husband one was also verbally put down by a Greek father. Never told he was good enough. Always said, you'll amount to no good. You'll never be able to do what I do, these kinds of things. So he also was traumatized. So I know, the questions I have to ask. I had to do the research because that was nothing that was taught to me in my master's program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, tell me what drives you?
Purpose in life,
Yeah.
and I took my pain and made it my passion and my purpose. I call
Mm-hmm.
my mission is that I'm on a mad mission to change the way the world loves, to help create emotionally healthy, evolved, and conscious relationships. So I'm all about education. I think it's a really important topic to get out there in the world. So you're part of my mission now, Melisha. Thank you for sharing the message of, how to have better relationships by healing your past
Yeah.
and, being understanding of other people's emotional triggers. It's not always about you. It's about stuff in them that they have not processed and healed. Right.
Yeah.
So if you're in a difficult relationship, I do relationship rescue, and you need to go through that together, but both have to be on board. Can't be like the woman does it and then the man's, well, if it changes you, I'll go in. It's like,
This is awesome. Are you on Instagram?
yeah, but I don't use that much. Most of my people are on Facebook.
Well,
Coach Riana Milne.
you should try to get on Instagram Live. I would love to attend and let my ladies know to attend some of your lives and take a few questions. I think you could really, touch and get through to a
I
lot.
have a Facebook Live. It's now called Midweek Motivation. I have a second Facebook. It's called ACOA.
Okay.
Anyone can overcome abusive childhood and love trauma. So
All right.
ACOA on Wednesdays at 11:30 a.m. Eastern and 8:30 a.m. Pacific
Okay.
is a bit of motivational reading. And then I'm there to talk a little bit on a topic and answer any questions for like 10 minutes.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So before we log off, it's been so awesome. What was one of the most memorable lessons that you've learned from being an entrepreneur?
It's one I like to share that my dad taught me when I was a teenager. It goes, hun, if you got the 5 Ds, you can do anything. From his lesson, I've added 2 more. So I'll tell you the 7 Ds. Because these were really important for me as I was
Mhm.
building this global practice. So the first one is decide.
Mhm.
Decide exactly what you want to do and decide that it's going to work. It's just
Mhm.
the method. The rest is easy. You just got to figure out the method. The
Yeah.
decision in your mind is everything. So my dad's 5 was desire, dedication, determination, devotion, which is spiritual,
Mhm.
and dare to dream. Those were his 5. So I
Wow.
had decide, and at the end I added drive. Because
Mhm.
during those hard days of building systems in my online school, I was working 12, 14-hour days, 7 days a week. That
Mhm.
was a time where I said, I don't have time for a relationship. I have to take care of me. I want to grow this business. And it's perfectly okay, ladies out there, that you don't have a relationship when you don't want one. Our society is there. Why don't you have a relationship? Because I'm consciously choosing not to have one right now.
Yeah.
So you build your business, and that's the drive part when you get tired, but just keep going, just keep pushing it. Or some people call it the grind. There is the grind in business when you're a solo entrepreneur, but it's usually worth it. You know, you just keep pushing through, and then it's completed and you go on to the next project. So you have to love the journey, you know, the journey of growth.
Well, Rihanna, it has been awesome talking with you today, and I have been educated in school, as they called it. Today, you have really not only awakened some things in me, you got me thinking and got me
Good.
realizing some things that maybe this is why things were happening in my life this way. So it was definitely awesome, and being able to have a chance to talk with you. I would like
Thank
for you
you.
to leave some final words with our listeners for today.
Okay. Again, for those free gifts, if you want more information on childhood trauma, my free ebook is at havetheloveyoudeserve.com. Havetheloveyoudeserve.com. And then my main website, rianamilne.com. You have the free love test there, the free book chapter downloads. And every Friday, I release a free podcast called Lessons in Life and Love, where I
Okay.
teach all around this topic, whether it's parenting, business, life skills, love skills. I hit on a lot of different topics. So please subscribe to that. Let me know what you'd like to hear me talk about. And join me on Facebook at Coach Riana Milne or ACOA. And I want to really encourage you, now is the time. Don't wait. Don't put your life on hold, you know, to create that life that you really do desire and to have the love you deserve. Once you learn these skills, you'll have them for the rest of your life.
Well, I thank you. It has been awesome. Thank everyone for tuning in for an episode of She Talk with the She Bad Society. Again, I am Alicia Watson, the CEO and owner of the She Bad Society. And until we get together once again, I look forward to speaking with you again with part 2. We need a part 2.
Yeah, I'll be back for part 2.
We need a part
Yes, I
2.
will.
Yes, and I will definitely be sending you an email. Thank you so much for
You're
joining me.
welcome. God bless everyone, and start now. Just start today to have the love you deserve.
Yes, yes. Thank you again. See you later.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We'll speak.